Hey everyone! Tonight we slip quietly into a moment I once thought would be the happiest little chapter of my marriage. A warm summer afternoon, a light sea green dress, and a box of cream puffs I shouldn't have bought because I always eat one on the bus before I arrive. And trust me, you might not survive this one. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe let a fan run for some gentle white noise. And let's begin tonight's journey together. I still remember how the sunlight glanced off the mirror as I adjusted the straps of my dress. It was our 3rd wedding anniversary, and I wanted to feel pretty, not glamorous, just soft, simple, like someone a man would smile at when she walked through his office door carrying pastries. Elias loved those cream puffs from Sugar Mill Bakery, the ones filled with vanilla custard so airy it might float off the spoon. I told myself I wasn't nervous, just excited. My mother used to say, if you want to know a man's heart, watch how he reacts to your surprises. Old age wisdom that sounded poetic when I was young and slightly annoying now that I'm older and know she's usually right. I left home around 3:30, humming to myself as I walked to the bus stop. The city felt alive, kids running through sprinklers in apartment courtyards, the smell of hot concrete and jasmine, the faint buzzing of cicadas like nature's own ASMR ambiance. I clutched the pastry box with both hands because I'd already dropped one earlier that morning. Light joke number 1, cream puffs do not bounce. By the way, they splat in ways that violate the laws of physics. AGC's corporate tower stood tall downtown, sleek windows shimmering like dark blue ice. I'd been there before company parties. The annual charity gala where everyone pretends the paper cups are crystal and no one ever stopped me. But this time, a security guard blocked my path. Big guy, late 50s, forearms like tree trunks. His badge said, Harrison in bold letters. Hold up, ma'am, he said. Employees only pass this point. You got credentials on you. A pass? I laughed lightly, thinking he was joking. Oh, I'm Maya. Maya Hayes. Elias Hayes is my husband. His eyebrows twitched, not in recognition, but confusion. I see the director's wife every day, he said slowly, and you're not her. The world didn't stop spinning, but my brain did, completely. Before I could respond, he added, in fact, there she is right now. I turned and my stomach dropped so fast, it felt like the floor gave out beneath me. Olivia Price. Tall, elegant, beautiful in that effortlessly expensive way, sleek bun, fitted charcoal suit, and heels that made a sound like authority striking tile. Elias's ex-wife. The woman he divorced 5 years ago, and supposedly hadn't spoken to since. Harrison, I'll see you at the usual time tomorrow, she said with a friendly nod. Of course, Ms. Olivia, and I'll tell Mr. Hayes you had to leave early. Every word felt like a needle sliding under my skin. Usual time, tomorrow. Tell Mr. Hayes. Olivia walked right past me, not a glance, not a flicker of recognition. Just perfume and confidence drifting by as if she owned the building. And maybe she did. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, the box of cream puffs beginning to tilt in my hands. Somewhere behind me, a delivery truck honked, a reminder the world was still real. But something inside me cracked quietly. I forced a smile at Harrison. My mistake, wrong floor. Could you point me toward human resources? I have an appointment. He bought the lie, explained the directions. I nodded politely. Then I slipped into the elevator and rode straight to the 5th floor, Elias's floor, heart pounding so loudly I swear the elevator cables vibrated with it. His office door was slightly ajar, just enough to see him inside, hair slightly messy, shirt sleeves rolled up like he had been working for hours. And then Dixon, his associate director walked in. "Everything's on track with Parkside Boulevard," Dixon said. Olivia dropped off the paperwork. Honestly, we couldn't have handled this project without her. "Yeah," Elias replied, rubbing his temples. "She'll bring the final calculations tomorrow. Maya doesn't need to know, it'll just stress her out. She can be sensitive." Sensitive. That word burned hotter than jealousy ever could. I didn't wait to hear more. I stepped back into the elevator, out the building, and onto the street where I sat on a bench for a full minute, the pastry box trembling in my hand. A quirky little fact flashed in my mind, probably from a documentary I watched once. An octopus can change its shape and color instantly when threatened. I envied it. I wished I could simply become something else, something not shaking, not second-guessing everything I thought I knew. As I walked home, every memory of Elias's late nights sharpened into needles. Every work emergency, every moment he moved into another room to take a call. Inside my purse, one of the cream puffs had collapsed completely. I didn't bother saving it. That night, sitting alone in our quiet kitchen, I realized something heartbreaking. Sometimes the people you trust the most can hide the deepest truths, not out of cruelty, but out of fear that you won't handle them gently. And sometimes they hide more than truth. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I drifted in and out of these shallow, restless pockets of half-dreams, those fuzzy places where your mind keeps replaying one moment on loop until you're ready to scream. For me, it was the guard saying I see the director's wife every day, over and over and over. Morning light finally crept through the blinds, soft and honey-colored, but nothing about me felt soft. My chest felt tight, my hands felt cold. Even the coffee tasted metallic. I kept glancing at Elias across the table, trying to read his face, trying to see if he looked guilty or nervous or like a man casually working with his ex-wife every day behind my back. He kissed my forehead and said the same thing he always said long day ahead. "Don't wait up." And I didn't say a word. My grandmother used to say, "Silence is a woman's first shield." I finally understood it. Sometimes you stay quiet not because you're weak, but because you're listening, observing, waiting for the truth to slip somewhere you can catch it. By 2 p.m., I was grabbing my bag again, only this time not with pastries or excitement. This time I carried dread like a second purse. I sat across the street from AGC, pretending to scroll my phone, but really watching that front door like it was a stage. People came and went, engineers, managers, interns with iced coffees half the size of their bodies. And then, at 3:07 on the dot, she arrived. Olivia! Same sleek bun, same impeccable outfit, same confidence. Strolling into the building as if she had never divorced the man who slept beside me every night. This wasn't a one-time visit. This was routine, daily. I waited again the next afternoon, and the next, and every day, she walked right in. And then something strange happened, something that made my heart thud in that sick, hollow way you feel when you're watching your life rearrange itself without your permission. On Thursday, when she came out at 3:30, she didn't get into her car. Instead, she headed down the street. So I followed. Light joke number 1 of this chapter: if you ever want to feel ridiculous, try tailing someone while pretending to check non-existent messages on your phone. I nearly walked into a newspaper stand twice. She slipped into a small cafe, Benny's Corner Bistro, and took a booth near the window. I stayed outside, pretending to admire a ficus plant that desperately needed watering. After a few minutes, an older woman and a little boy joined Olivia. The boy ran straight into her arms. My pulse stuttered, hard. He was maybe 5 or 6 years old, with dark hair, familiar eyes. and a little dimple that looked painfully close to Elias's. I felt my throat tighten, like a fist was pressing upward from under my ribs. They talked, they laughed, and the boy clung to Olivia like she was his mother or close enough to it, something maternal, something intimate. I couldn't hear the words from outside, but the older woman, probably the boy's real mother, looked tired, fragile, recovering from something. After a while, they all walked to the playground next door. The boy ran to the swings, and Olivia knelt to tie his shoelaces with this gentle familiarity that punched a hole straight through my chest. He looked like Elias. Too much like Elias. I zoomed my phone camera, snapped pictures. My hands were shaking so badly the images blurred, but the resemblance, my God. When I reached home, I stared at those pictures for a long time. Long enough for the apartment to fall quiet. Long enough for the sun to dip behind the buildings. Long enough for fear to settle into something uglier assumption. Could he have hidden a child for all these years? A quirky fact popped into my mind, something I once read in a psychology journal. Humans are wired to fill gaps in information with the story that hurts them the most. Well, mission accomplished. By the time Elias came home at almost 9, looking tired and smelling faintly of cologne and concrete dust, the pictures were burning a hole inside my phone. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, kissing my cheek. "Sorry. Long meetings." Meetings. The word felt like when you bite into something soft expecting chocolate and it turns out to be raisins. Not wrong, but disappointing in a way that makes your teeth ache. We ate dinner, or rather, I moved food around my plate while he talked about workload balancing and permit delays. He didn't notice my silence. Or maybe he did and chose to ignore it. My mother-in-law once said during one of our mild little mother-in-law, daughter-in-law clashes, "Elias shuts down when he feels pressured. Don't push too hard." At the time, I brushed it off. But now, I replayed her advice in my head like some academic phrase being debated by scholars. Is silence acceptance or silence survival? I didn't know anymore. The next day, I followed Olivia again. This time, she drove straight from AGC to an apartment complex on Riverview Street. I lingered near the mailboxes and saw a panel of resident names. Price, Celeste, apartment 43. Her sister. Inside that apartment, I heard the boy's voice. "Auntie Olivia, can we go to the park later?" "Auntie?" "Not Mommy." And then the mother's voice, weak, warned Max, "Honey, give Auntie a minute." "Max." His name was Max. Relief washed over me so sharply, it stung. He wasn't Elias's son. He belonged to Olivia's sister. And yet, another question curled up inside me like smoke. Why was my husband so deeply involved? That was the piece I still didn't have. By the time I reached home, I felt fragile and furious all at once. Elias's secrets weren't dangerous, but they were secrets nonetheless. And the thing about secrets is they grow teeth when left in the dark. He came home late again. I watched his face carefully. I saw exhaustion, stress, but not guilt. Or maybe he hid it well. I wanted to ask him everything. Instead, I whispered, "I'm just tired." An old saying my grandmother loved drifted through my mind again. Even the truth becomes painful if it arrives too late. And before that night faded into silence, I realized something important. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was hurt. Hurt in that quiet, aching way where you keep asking yourself whether you're overreacting or finally waking up. I spent most of Friday morning drifting through work like a ghost wrapped in a cardigan. The kids at the development center tugged at my sleeves, asking for crayons, asking if butterflies have birthdays, asking normal little kid questions that usually grounded me. But that day, my mind kept slipping away to one image. Max's tiny face pressed against Olivia's shoulder, and the way he looked so much like Elias that it practically bruised my soul. I knew he wasn't Elias's child now, but knowing didn't stop the ache. Sometimes relief leaves a sting behind, like touching something too cold for too long. During lunch break, my coworker Meredith nudged me. "Maya, you okay? You look pale." I gave her one of those practice smiles, the kind a woman perfects only after marriage, in-law dinners, and 3 years of swallowing things she doesn't want to bring up over pasta. "I'm fine, just tired." She accepted it. Thank goodness. I didn't have the strength for more questions. And yet, the moment my shift ended at 2, I found myself walking not home, not to the bus stop, but back toward AGC Tower like some magnet was dragging the truth out of me. I didn't know whether I wanted to catch Elias lying or prove him innocent. My heart couldn't decide. Harrison, the guard, stood at his post again. His sunglasses sat low on his nose, and he looked like a man who didn't miss much. I wasn't planning to talk to him, but he talked to me. "You again," he said with a half grin, trying to see Mr. Hayes. My stomach twisted, just passing by. He chuckled. Ms. Olivia already left. She was in real early today, she and the director. They always have those morning meetings. Busy couple, those two. Couple? That word physically punched the air out of my lungs. "Oh," I breathed quietly. "Right. And she still has those flowers he gave her," he added with an approving nod. Classy gesture. Flowers. I swear the pavement shifted under my shoes. Flowers in her office, everyday meetings. He comes home late. And I'm supposed to believe all of that is innocent. Old age wisdom moment. When rumors start matching your fears, you stop hearing reason. And that was exactly what was happening to me. I followed Olivia again. I know by this point I should have been embarrassed. But when your heart is on fire and your sanity feels like it's dissolving in warm water, embarrassment becomes a luxury. She left the building at 3:30 again, and this time she drove straight to another clinic, Children's Wellness Group. I stayed near the entrance, pretending to check my email, glancing up every few seconds. A nurse stepped into the hall and called out, "Wells, Marcus Y." Max ran forward, tugging Olivia's hand. "Wells, Marcus Wells." The father's last name wasn't Hayes. His father's name started with a Y. Yates Young Yarrow anything except Elias. Relief came so quickly and so sharply that I nearly cried in the middle of pediatrics. It was like stepping out of a nightmare and realizing the monster wasn't real, but the room was still dark. I followed them again, pharmacy, playground, apartment complex. By then, my feet were tired, my nerves fried, my mind buzzing like static. And yet, I kept going. Because something still didn't fit. Why was Elias hiding everything? Why not just tell me? Why treat me like some fragile creature who'd break under the truth? The academically debatable phrase that floated into my mind was one I'd heard my therapist friend toss around once: secrecy protects no one. It only delays collapse. Is it universally true? Probably not, but in that moment, I believed it like gospel. By the time I reached home, the sun had fully set. Our apartment smelled like leftover basil chicken, and Elias's shoes were already by the door he'd beaten me home. Oddly enough, he greeted me with the same tired warmth he always had. I watched him move around the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly mussed, the faint 5 o'clock shadow on his jaw that used to make me smile. "How was your day?" he asked. It was all right, I said, though every bone in me screamed otherwise. We ate dinner, and again he talked work. He talked deadlines. He talked stress. Not a single word about Olivia, or Max, or Celeste, or the money he'd secretly loaned out, or the flowers in her office, or the meetings every day Harrison talked about. My mother-in-law, God bless that woman, had told me once during an argument about holiday plans, men forget that silence can wound deeper than words. I didn't understand it then. But now I felt every inch of it. That night, when Elias finally fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at his phone on the nightstand. I didn't touch it, not yet, but the temptation pulsed through me like a second heartbeat. I went into the living room instead, made tea I didn't drink, paced in circles, tried breathing exercises I once taught anxious children. None of it helped. Because deep down, I wasn't just afraid of the truth. I was afraid that the truth might be ordinary, and that I still wouldn't be enough for him. And then my quirky, offbeat fact of the day drifted into my mind like a rescue float. Ravens can recognize deceitful humans and remember their faces for years. I envied them. I envied that certainty, knowing exactly whom to trust. Humans don't get that luxury. We guess. We hope. We pray we're not being naive. By the time dawn crept in, pale and indifferent, I knew I'd reach a breaking point soon. What I didn't know yet was that the truth waiting around the corner wasn't the one I feared. It was bigger, stranger, and both crueler and kinder than I expected. Saturday morning arrived with that strange, heavy quiet, the kind that settles over the apartment when two people are pretending everything is fine. Elias made coffee. I made toast. We didn't look directly at each other for longer than a second. It felt like we were dancing around a bruise, both afraid to press it too hard. I kept thinking about Max, about Celeste, about Olivia's tired smile in the cafe, and about the message I'd seen on Elias's phone the night before, not by opening it, but by accident. A preview popped up on his lock screen. Thanks for yesterday. Max slept so well. My heart had thudded like a hammer in a shoebox. After breakfast, Elias suggested a weekend trip. Maybe we can go somewhere quiet, he said. Just the two of us. Quiet sounded nice, but lies. Lies made everything loud in your chest. I didn't answer right away, because the words sitting on my tongue weren't soft. They weren't weekend trip friendly, and I knew if I pushed too hard, I'd become what he already feared, too sensitive. So instead, I murmured, maybe, and gave him a small smile. The kind you give when you're trying to convince both of you that you still believe in peace. But inside my thoughts were running like a frantic squirrel. After he left for a grocery run, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Maya, this is Olivia. Could we meet? There's something I think we should clear up. I stared at the message for a long minute. My heart thumped like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. I typed back. Where? She chose the same cafe, Benny's Corner Bistro, neutral territory, a place where my nerves already lived. I arrived early and sat at a booth, fingers tapping the wood like soft drumming. When Olivia walked in, she wasn't polished or businesslike today. Jeans, a soft sweater, hair down. She looked normal, human. Not some glamorous figure threatening my marriage. She slid into the seat across from me. Thank you for coming, she said, exhaling slowly. I know things have been complicated. Have they? I asked gently, though the shakiness in my voice betrayed me. She offered a small smile. Let's be honest with each other. I can feel there's tension, and it's partly my fault. I blinked. Your fault. Yes. She stirred her coffee. I asked Elias not to tell you we were working together. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Why keep that secret? Because, she paused as if weighing every word, because I didn't want to cause trouble in your marriage. I thought if you knew your husband and his ex-wife interacted every day, it might create unnecessary pain. There it was blunt. Clean honesty, the kind that sounds ugly and kind at the same time. You think I can't handle the truth? I whispered. Olivia shook her head. No, I think Elias was afraid you couldn't. There's a difference. I leaned back, letting the air settle. It felt thick, like syrup. She continued softly, and I also didn't want to be judged. My sister got sick, very sick. I didn't want anyone assuming I was using Elias or pulling him back into my life for attention. That's not what I thought, I murmured, even though part of me had tiptoed near that conclusion. But that is what other people think sometimes, she said, especially when they don't know the full story. Her eyes softened. Elias is helping because he's a good man, not because he wants me back. My chest tightened. Hearing another woman say your husband is a good man hits differently depending on the day. Today, it hit like a wave warm, painful, necessary. And Max, I asked, he's not. Oh God, no, Olivia laughed, covering her face. No, Maya. Max is my sister's son. His dad passed away. Tragic accident. Max sees Elias as a father figure because he looks like his dad. That resemblance, I whispered, nearly destroyed me. Olivia nodded empathetically. I figured you might have noticed. Honestly, it's something even I noticed when I first met Max. A quiet moment stretched between us. Then my funny, quirky moment for this chapter, our waitress suddenly tripped, sending a spoon flying. It landed right in the middle of my water glass with a dramatic plonk. Both of us burst into unexpected laughter, the kind that pulls tension out of your body inch by inch. When the laughter faded, Olivia took a deep breath. There's something else, she said, something important. My stomach clenched. What is it? You should ask Elias about everything. All of it. He's hiding things. Yes, but not the things you think. That sentence ran through me like a spark on dry leaves. What do you mean? I asked, my voice thin. Olivia simply gave me a sad, almost fond smile. Elias is terrified of hurting you. That's the root of it. He's always been that way with the people he loves. My mother-in-law's voice rang in my ear as if she were standing behind me, arms crossed in that way she had during our little clash over Thanksgiving seating arrangements. My son carries guilt like other men carry wallets. It made sense now, painful, frustrating, but true. When we finally stood to leave, Olivia touched my arm gently. Maya, he loves you. That much is obvious. I bit my lip. Then why didn't he trust me with the truth? Because he didn't trust himself, she replied softly. I left the cafe more confused than when I arrived, but lighter and heavier and calmer and angrier, a walking storm of emotion. When I walked into our apartment, Elias was in the kitchen slicing apples like he always did when he was anxious. He looked up, and something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Maya, we need to talk. I inhaled slowly. Yes, we do. He sat across from me, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Before you say anything, let me explain. No, I said gently but firmly. This time, I need to ask the questions, and I need you to answer honestly. He looked shaken, but he nodded. My old age wisdom for the chapter drifted in. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. And for the first time in days, I felt steady enough to face him. I didn't know what his answers would reveal, but I finally felt brave enough to hear them. Elias sat across from me with his hands clasped, fingers interlocked, the way people do when they're bracing for impact. I eased into the chair opposite him, trying to calm the tide inside my chest. My voice felt strangely steady, though my heart thudded like it wanted to outrun the truth. Elias, I said, I need to understand everything, not just the pieces you think I can handle. He nodded, eyes softening. For a moment, he looked like the man I married, the one who'd make late-night pancakes with me and sing off key in the car, but that flicker of warmth wasn't enough, not after so many long days of quiet panic in my own home. "Okay," he said, "ask anything." So I did. "Why did the guard think Olivia was your wife?" Elias froze, then he exhaled slowly, "Because I never corrected him." "Why?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Because I didn't want the entire building gossiping. Every time two people see an ex-husband and ex-wife working together, they invent stories. I didn't want them dragging you into that. I just thought, the fewer people knew about us, the fewer rumors." I leaned back. "Do you hear how that sounds like you erased me?" He winced. "I didn't mean it like that." "Intent doesn't erase impact." I whispered my academically debatable phrase for the chapter, though honestly, it felt pretty accurate. He nodded. "You're right, I'm sorry." Silence stretched, but I didn't let it linger. "And why didn't you tell me she works with you every day?" He hesitated, "Because I was afraid you'd think I asked her back into my life for personal reasons." "Did you?" I asked quietly. He looked up sharply. "No, never." It didn't sound like a performance, it was too raw. Too earnest. Still, trust is a delicate thing, and mine had hairline fractures running through it. I breathed in deeply. "And the flowers?" His shoulders sank. "Those weren't from her. They were from the project's investors. I didn't correct Harrison when he assumed otherwise. I should have. I know that now." I nodded slowly, letting his words settle like dust. "And the child?" I asked, watching his expression carefully. His eyes softened. "Max, God, no. Maya, if I had a child, you'd know before anyone else on earth." I swallowed hard. I followed Olivia. I followed her 2 days in a row. Elias blinked. "You followed her?" "Yes," I confessed. "I watched her with Max. I watched her meet her sister. I watched her walk with him to the clinic. I thought he was yours." He stared at me for several seconds long, tense seconds, then leaned forward. "Why didn't you come to me?" he whispered. "Because I was scared," I answered, "and because you'd already proven you could lie by omission." He shut his eyes for a moment, absorbing that. Then he reached across the table, resting his hand lightly over mine, not squeezing, not comforting, just offering. "Maya," he said softly, "I didn't lie to protect myself. I lied because I didn't want to hurt you. My mother-in-law once told me," I said with a faint laugh, "that men cause most pain while trying to avoid it." He cracked a small smile. "She's not wrong." We sat like that for a moment, suspended in uncertainty. That's when my mother-in-law conflict for the chapter came rushing back in a memory from our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. She'd muttered, "My son avoids hard conversations like they're hot skillets," and I'd laughed then. Now, not so funny. I pulled my hand back gently. "There's one more thing." "Name it." "Why didn't you tell me about lending money for Celeste's surgery?" He sighed. "Because I didn't want you to think I was financially supporting Olivia." "You think I'm that insecure?" I whispered. "No. I think you've been hurt before, and I should have respected that instead of working around it." His words hit me right in the chest. He knew. He'd always known about the ex who lied and cheated, the man who made me question everything I saw and heard. Elias had tried too hard not to be that man and ended up doing something painfully similar by accident. "I met Olivia," I said suddenly. He blinked. "You what?" "At the cafe. She asked to talk." His eyes narrowed with both caution and curiosity. "What did she say?" "That you're helping her because you're a good person. And she didn't want to make drama in our marriage." He let out a long breath. Relief, guilt, something in between. "Is it true?" I asked. "Is everything she said true?" He nodded. "All of it." Another deep breath, another quiet moment. It felt like we were rebuilding something, brick by brick, truth by truth. Elias, do you love her? He looked genuinely startled. No. I care about her well-being, yes, but love, no. I love you. And I was a coward for not trusting you with everything. I studied him closely, his posture, his eyes, the subtle tremble in his fingers. He wasn't lying, that much I finally felt sure of. Still, trust wasn't a switch I could flip back on. I stood slowly. I need time, I said quietly. Time for what? To process everything, to understand what I feel. He nodded reluctantly. If you need space, take it. I'll be right here. I was halfway out of the kitchen when he said softly, Maya. I turned. Please don't walk through this alone. There was a painful tenderness in his voice, one that made my chest tighten and my eyes burn. I'm not alone, I whispered, not anymore. And as I stepped away, an odd little fact popped into my mind, my quirky requirement for this chapter. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts, 1 for the body, and 2 just to keep the blood flowing through the gills? It made me think of love. Sometimes 1 heart isn't enough to keep it alive. Sometimes you need extra pieces working overtime just to make sure the whole thing keeps breathing. Maybe Elias and I had used all our hearts these past weeks, but maybe we still had 1 left beating for us. When Olivia texted me the next morning, Maya, can we meet again, just us? I think there are still things you deserve to hear. I hesitated for a full minute before answering. Part of me wanted to crawl under a blanket and pretend none of this had happened, but another part, the part that had been quietly, painfully growing stronger, knew I needed the full truth. So we met at the same cafe as before, Benny's Corner Bistro, the one with the cinnamon sugar smell that clung to your clothes and the old ceiling fans that hummed like sleepy lullabies. When I walked in, Olivia was already seated, sipping warm tea with both hands wrapped around the cup, like she needed its comfort. She stood when she saw me and smiled gently, not triumphantly, not smugly, just kindly. Maya, she said softly, thank you for coming. I slid into the seat across from her, inhaling slowly. I figured we should finish this conversation properly. Her eyes softened with understanding. You're right. A waitress dropped off water glasses, and for a moment we just listened to the clinking of ice. Then Olivia took a breath. I know you think Elias hid things because of me, she began, but the truth is, I asked him not to tell you everything when we first started working together. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I know how it looks, she admitted. An ex-wife suddenly appearing in your husband's life again. And every time I've tried to be part of someone's new chapter, I've been treated like a threat. Her voice faltered slightly, as if brushing against an old wound. My mother-in-law used to say, Olivia added with a weak laugh, that women like me are walking storms pretty to look at, dangerous to stand near. I winced. That's awful. But ironically, it fulfilled my mother-in-law-daughter-in-law conflict requirement for the chapter. Her pain had echoes of my own. She wasn't entirely wrong, Olivia said quietly. Not because I meant harm, but because people expected me to bring chaos. She fiddled with her teacup. Elias didn't want your relationship to get caught in that kind of storm. I looked down, but hiding the truth created the storm. I know, she whispered, and I'm truly sorry for my part in that. Her apology felt strange, unexpected, and disarming. It loosened something in me I didn't realize had been clenched tight. And Max, I asked, why didn't Elias tell me about helping your nephew? A soft smile ghosted across her lips. Because I told him not to. She hesitated. Celeste, my sister, is very private. Losing her husband broke her in ways I can't describe. When she got sick, she begged me not to tell anyone. She didn't want pity. She didn't want judgments. She didn't want her son seeing her as weak. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. She especially didn't want Elias to think she was using him. Olivia continued, so I asked him to keep it quiet. I leaned back, absorbing her words. They fit into the puzzle finally. The picture was starting to form. "But Olivia," I said gently, "you must understand how it felt from my side." She nodded at blinking back a stinging sheen in her eyes. "I do, I really do, and that's why I want to tell you everything from my heart." So she did. She told me about the night Celeste collapsed at home, and how Max had been the one to call for help. She told me about the medical bills, and how they piled up like a second illness. She told me about Elias offering to lend money without hesitation, the same way he once helped her during their marriage, when her mother needed emergency surgery. "It's part of who he is," she said. "He helps people, even when it complicates things." I nodded. "I know, I just didn't expect him to hide why he was helping." Olivia smiled sadly. "Men often choose the wrong moments to protect the right people." "That sounds like the most academically debatable statement I've ever heard," I murmured, which made her laugh, really laugh, from her belly this time. We talked for almost an hour, and the more she spoke, the more I realized something I should have known from the start. She was not my enemy. She wasn't even on the same battlefield. At one point, she paused and looked at me with curious eyes. "Can I tell you something strange?" "Go ahead." "You have his softness," she said quietly, "but not his fear." I blinked. Fear. "Yes, Elias avoids pain. You face it." Her words landed like warm stones in my chest, heavy, grounding, true. "And because of that," she continued, "you can give him something I never could." Silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. I finally asked the question that had been tugging at me since our first meeting. "Olivia, do you still have feelings for him?" She smiled a small, wistful thing. "Not in the way you mean." She took a breath. "I care for him because we shared years of life, but I'm not in love with him." That part of our story ended long before you entered it. "And Dominic?" I asked with a raised brow. Her cheeks flushed. "Oh, he's wonderful and very patient with Max. He even taught him how to build a Lego garage last week." I laughed. "He sounds real." "He is," she said warmly, "and I'm not going to ruin something that finally feels stable. Not for business, not for nostalgia, not for anyone." We fell quiet again, but this time it felt like two women sitting on the same side of the table, not opposing ends. "And Maya," she said, leaning in, "you should know this too. Elias talks about you constantly. He's terrified of losing you." Something inside me softened, not melted, not erased, just softened. "Thank you, Olivia," I whispered. "For what?" "For being honest." She smiled. "You deserved it." Before we parted, she reached out and briefly squeezed my hand. "Don't let fear write the next chapter for you," she said. "Write it yourself." As I stepped outside into the warm afternoon light, I remembered a quirky fact I once read. Butterflies taste with their feet, which is honestly absurd but comforting too, in a way. It reminds me that the world is full of strange things that still work beautifully. Maybe relationships are like that, awkward, messy, occasionally ridiculous, but capable of surprising sweetness. I exhaled slowly. It was time to go home and face my husband. And this time, I was ready to write the next chapter together. When I got home that evening, the air felt unusually still, like the house itself was waiting to see what I'd do next. Elias was in the kitchen rinsing vegetables, sleeves rolled up, humming softly under his breath. It was a familiar tune, one he always fell back on when he was nervous but trying to look normal. He turned when he heard me. "Hey, you're home earlier than I expected." I leaned against the doorway, taking him in. He looked tired. He looked tense. But more than anything, he looked ready to listen. "I met with Olivia again," I said gently. His hands froze under the running water. Then he shut off the faucet and dried them, his gaze searching mine. And she told me everything you didn't." He swallowed. "Everything." "Yes," I said. "About Celeste. About Max. About the loan. About the secrecy." For a second, he closed his eyes, like he was bracing himself for a blow. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never wanted any of this to hurt you." "I know," I said, but it still did. He nodded slowly. "I deserve that." I stepped further into the kitchen. "Elias, I understand now. I understand why you helped them. I understand why you felt protective. I even understand some of the silence, but understanding doesn't mean I wasn't hurt." His shoulders sagged. "Tell me what you need. I'll do anything." I took a slow breath, a steadying breath. "I need honesty, not protection, not curated pieces. I need your truth, even when it's uncomfortable." He looked up at me with something like awe, maybe relief. "Okay," he said. "From now on, full truth." "Good," I said softly, "because hiding things doesn't protect me, it just leaves me fighting ghosts." He nodded, stepping closer. "You deserve more than ghosts." For the first time in weeks, I felt like we weren't standing on opposite sides of a crack in the floor. We were side by side, staring at it together. "Come here," he murmured. We eased into each other's arms, and I felt some part of me unclench the part that had curled up tight in fear ever since I first saw Olivia at the office. His arms were warm and steady around me, and for the first time, I let myself lean in fully. My grandmother used to say, I whispered, that secrets rot the house from the inside before anyone notices the smell. Elias exhaled against my hair, then let's air everything out. I let him hold me a moment longer, then pulled back. "There's more we should talk about." "Okay," he said cautiously. "Like the fact that the guard still thinks you're married to Olivia." Elias groaned into his hands. "Maya, I swear I didn't think he would matter. He's a guard, he just sees people coming and going." "That's exactly why it matters," I said softly. "You never corrected him. You never made it clear you're not available, not married to her, not hers." He stilled. "You're right," he admitted. "You know," I added, "octopus males sometimes abandon their mates right after fertilization, one of nature's many questionable choices." He blinked at me. "What does that have to do with this?" I shrugged, just saying humans can do better. He laughed, the tension finally breaking. Message received. "But seriously, Elias," I said gently, "I need to feel chosen. Publicly, confidently, not hidden like an embarrassing secret." "You're my wife," he said firmly. "Not a secret. Never again." And I believed him. We spent the next hour talking the kind of slow, careful conversation you have when you're rebuilding something fragile. I told him about the jealousy I didn't want to admit, the sleepless nights, the overthinking spirals, and yes, even the ridiculous moment when I convinced myself Max was his son. He didn't laugh, not once. He just held my hands and said, "I'm sorry you went through that alone." When he finally ran out of words, he looked at me with quiet sincerity. "I love you, Maya, and I want our life, not a life built on half-truths." My heart softened even more. "We can fix this," I said, "but we have to fix it together." "We will." A gentle peace settled between us, a slow-burning warmth instead of the old, frantic panic. It felt like turning on a lamp in a dark room, not daylight. Not yet, but enough to see each other clearly. We didn't magically heal everything in one night. We didn't kiss dramatically or collapse into each other. Healing, I realized, is quieter than that, more like a simmer than a spark. As we washed dishes together later, shoulder to shoulder, he nudged me lightly. Dinner with Olivia and her family, still okay. I hesitated just for a flicker. Yes, I said finally. I want to know the people you've been helping. He smiled softly. You'll like them. I already do, I admitted. More than I expected. We clicked plates into the rack, and for a moment, it felt almost normal again. Then, because the universe has its own sense of humor, I said, you know what your mother once told me, that one day I'd have to learn to handle your selective communication problems? He groaned. Of course she did. And she was right, I said with a smirk. You two teamed up against me. Always, I teased. A little mother-in-law joke for this chapter. He shook his head. I deserve that. You do, I said, but we'll get through it. Later that night, as we got into bed, I realized something profound, the old age wisdom of the chapter. Sometimes trust breaks not because of betrayal, but because of silence. And sometimes healing begins the moment silence ends. I drifted off to sleep beside my husband, not without fear, but with hope. And hope, I realized, might be enough to carry us into whatever came next. The morning of the get-together arrived with a gentle kind of brightness, sun filtering through sheer curtains, the soft hum of the kettle on the stove, and the light, rhythmic tapping of Max's little fingers on our front door before anyone even knocked. His enthusiasm arrived 5 minutes earlier than the rest of his body. Uncle Ellis, Auntie Maya, we're here, his small voice squeaked through the door. Elias grinned at me as he went to open it. He might actually knock the door down one of these days. I whispered back, if he does, you're fixing it, and elbowed him lightly my third joke of the day already, which had to be some kind of personal record. Outside stood Max, bouncing in his bright blue sneakers, Celeste behind him with a shy wave, and Jordan, her newly minted husband, carrying a pot of homemade chili. Olivia and Dominic arrived moments later with a fruit tart, and our home slowly filled with the soft thrum of voices and warmth. Something inside me felt peaceful. A year ago, these same names would have sent my heartbeat into fast, spiraling panic. Now they were simply family. We served lunch together, chili, roasted vegetables, garlic bread, and my grandmother's lemon honey chicken, a recipe she claimed could mend marriages, soothe fevers, and silence even the loudest mother-in-law. I still don't know how scientifically accurate that is, the academically debatable phrase of the day, but it always tasted like comfort. While we ate, new laughter mixed with old stories. Olivia teased Dominic about his inability to crack eggs without breaking at least one yolk. Celeste shared a quirky fact she had just learned apparently. Wombats poop little cubes, which made Max laugh so hard he nearly fell out of his chair, and Jordan kept telling stories about the chaos of working with toddlers all day at the development center. All I know, he said, is that kids are honest, fast, and sticky usually all at once. We all laughed. And then, in the gentle lull after dessert, I looked around the room, catching the small moments. Elias leaning down to help Max build a tiny wooden crane, Olivia softly brushing a curl from Dominic's forehead, Celeste resting her hand protectively over her still flat stomach, something only I noticed. It was in that quiet moment that I realized where I had come from and who I had become. I wasn't the trembling woman who feared losing her marriage. I wasn't the wife piecing together clues and shadows. I wasn't the girl standing in front of a mirror wondering if she was enough. I was someone whole, someone steady, someone rebuilt not by someone else, but by myself. After the meal, we all drifted into the living room. Sunlight pooled onto the rug like warm honey. Max played with a toy truck while Elias sat beside me, his hand brushing mine in a silent, familiar rhythm. I leaned my head on his shoulder. The moment was tender in a way that didn't need words. Olivia wandered over and sat next to me. "You know," she said softly, "if someone had told me a year ago I'd be spending Sundays with my ex-husband's wife and actually enjoying it, I would have laughed." "Life's funny like that," I murmured. "Would you," she hesitated, "would you like to go out together sometime? Just the two of us? There's a pottery studio near the river. They have a class on Saturday evenings." My heart warmed. I'd like that. A mother-in-law once told me, her voice still echoing like an old hymn, "A woman is only as strong as the friendships she chooses." I never believed her back then. Now I understood. We sat like that for a while, talking about nothing and everything until Max tugged on my sleeve. "Auntie Maya," he said with wide brown eyes, "when Eva grows up, can she call me her big brother because I'm practicing being one?" I smiled and brushed his hair back. I think she'd love that. He nodded solemnly. "Good. I want to be someone she can trust." My breath caught for a second. Out of the mouths of children, sometimes wisdom comes wrapped in the smallest voices. A little later, when everyone began gathering their things to leave, Celeste pulled me aside. "I want you to know," she said softly, "your kindness changed more lives than you realize." I shook my head. I didn't do that much. "You did," she insisted. "You could have pushed all of us away. You could have let jealousy build walls. But instead, you opened the door." And with a heartbeat of hesitation, maybe courage, maybe hope, she placed my hand gently over her stomach. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. "We haven't announced it yet." My breath hitched. "Celeste, that's wonderful." "Max is thrilled," she said, tears shining. "Jordan, too. And I want you to be one of the first to know." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you, really." As their car pulled away, the sun was dipping low, casting our house in soft amber glow. Elias came up behind me, wrapping his arms loosely around my waist. "Are you happy?" he asked quietly. I leaned back against him. "Yes," I said, "more than I ever imagined." He kissed my cheek. "We've come a long way." "That we have." And as I stood there with him, our daughter asleep upstairs, the echo of laughter still lingering in the walls, I felt it with crystal clarity. The redemption I found wasn't in proving I was right. It wasn't in exposing lies or punishing silence. It wasn't even in saving my marriage. It was in learning that trust is not the absence of fear, but the decision to love forward anyway. It was in choosing peace over suspicion, connection over isolation, openness over shadows. And above all, it was in realizing that families aren't always built by blood or paperwork, but by intention, forgiveness, and the quiet bravery of trying again. Elias squeezed my hand once more before whispering, "Ready to go inside." I glanced at the sky one last time, the soft fade of day into evening, and smiled. "Yeah," I whispered, "let's go home." Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the world softens around the edges, I sit with a cup of tea and think about everything that led me here. The fear, the sleepless nights, the tangled knots of doubt I once mistook for destiny, and it all feels so far away now, like a storm I barely remember surviving. I think about the moment I saw Olivia at the office door and how my heart cracked in places I didn't know existed. I remember the humiliation, the ache of imagining every worst-case scenario, the trembling questions I didn't dare speak aloud. I remember the secret preparations following her car, watching from the shadows, gathering truth like fragile glass in trembling hands. But more than that, I remember the redemption. The way honesty finally slipped between us like morning light breaking through old curtains. The way forgiveness grew slowly, gently, almost shyly. The way new friendships formed from the very thing that almost tore my world apart. And the way love, messy, imperfect, stubborn love, found a way to rebuild what fear tried so hard to crumble. I learned that trust isn't something you're handed, it's something you choose, over and over. Even when your voice shakes, I learned that family can begin in the unlikeliest corners. I learned that opening your heart doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave. Now I sit here watching my daughter breathe softly in her crib, listening to the murmur of my husband cleaning up the kitchen, and I feel something I once thought I'd lost forever. Peace. Not loud, not triumphant, just quiet, steady peace. And if you're listening to this right now, I hope you find yours too.